So we should be live now. So can you refresh the page? Can you hear me clearly? Is the audio okay? Is the audio okay? Can you hear me? Yeah, I think so. It's good. All right. My phone's on DND, so you might not be able to reach me. Okay, so I think we can get started now. Okay, so I think we can get started now. Good day, everyone. In today's live stream, we are going to be walking through how to create landing pages using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So in the link in the description, there is a assets folder linked. So just open up the assets folder in VS Code. So to be able to follow through with this lesson, you should be able to code in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So a preview of what we are going to be building today is this landing page we have on the screen right now. So in order to create this, we're going to be using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and some of the images in our assets folder. So to get started, just open up the index.html file in your browser and then just indicate your doc type. You simply do that by putting an exclamation mark. So you have your doc type already. So you could just change the title of the page to landing page live. So when you save that and you open up the index in your live server, you should have a blank page with a title of landing page live. So the next steps we are going to take would be to import our CSS file. So we would import our CSS file by simply saying, simply using our link tag. So we'll just link CSS. So you simply import the style sheet, which is already here. So just say link CSS and you save the file. So that automatically imports the CSS for you. Also the JavaScript as well. So just say scripts and source. So scripts src app.js. So when you import that, you save it as well, and you are good to go. So we can get started by creating our nav bar inside of our body. So you just use your nav tag, and then you create a div inside called nav container. So you say div, or better still, you could just say .nav container. So inside of your nav container, you would create a div class called nav left. So basically, what we are trying to create right now is this nav section right here. So we're trying to build this nav section right here. Then after that, we would build this part with the buttons as well. So that's what we're trying to create. So we're trying to create this part of the page right now. So we'll just say nav container. So inside the nav container, we'll have a div called nav left. So inside of that, we would have another div containing the nav logo. So we'll just say nav logo. So inside the nav logo, we would have an image src, which is indicating our image, the location of our image. So we'll just say inside of images, our logo is logo.svg. So we'll just say logo.svg. So save that. So you should see your logo appear by this side of the screen. So to check that, we'll just see if it's, so yeah, so we just imported our logo to our page. So the next steps would be to create an unordered list with list items inside, which would be our nav items. So we'll create a UL with LIs, which will contain the nav items on the screen. So in order to do that, we'll just go outside of the div or inside the div with the logo as well. So we'll just say UL, or better still, we'll say UL with a class of nav links. So inside the UL, we'll have list items, which would be our LIs. So we'll say LI, which is going to be features. The first list item is features. So we'll save that, and then we'll see features by the side of the screen. So let's just check our guide real quick. So yeah, so we just did features. So beside features, we have an icon. We have an icon beside features. So that's like our arrow down icon, which is also in our assets. So we'd import that as well inside of features. So we'll just say img tag with our src, and then we would import our image. Like, so just say images. Inside of your images, we have the arrow down icon, arrow down. So we'll just save that, and then we'll give it a class of, so we'll give it a class of arrow, and also an alt of arrow down. So we'll save that, and we should see our arrow down just beside the features there. So after that, the next thing we would be doing is to have a div for submenu, for the submenu one, which is the other items on the menu, which is the other items. Inside of features, there are some other items. The features is meant to be like a drop down which has other items inside. So we'd call that a submenu. So we're just going to create a div called submenu one. So we'll just say submenu one. So inside of our submenu one, we'll have a p class with sublink. So we'll say p tag rather, with a class of sublink. So we'll say sublink. So inside of that, we'll have an image, which we'll have an image for the to-do list. So img src as well. So inside of our images folder, we have an icon for to-do list. So we'll say icon to-do, and then inside of that as well, we'll say to-do list, to-do list. So we'll save that and see what appears on the screen. So this is what appears on the screen. So we have under features, we have to-do list, we have calendar, we have reminders, and we have planners. So you can see that clearly when you check the designs, active states. So you can see on the side, we have the to-do list, the calendar, the reminder, and planning. So this is what we are trying to achieve by creating the submenu div. So under to-do list, we'd have another p tag. So we could just copy this p tag right here and just duplicate it like 3 more times underneath this one. So we'll just say 1, 2, 3. So we have 1, 2, 3. So after to-do list, the next thing we'd have is calendar. So under calendar, the next thing we'll have is reminder. Then under reminder, the next thing we'll have is planning. So I'll save that, and then we'll see we have other, there's a typo here. So we have other list items under features. So now I'm just going to change the name of the icon. So the next icon here is calendar, which is from our assets. So just say calendar. And then from here, we'll say reminders icon. And then from here, we'll say planning.svg as well. So when I save that, the icons on this side should change to their respective icons. So we're done with the HTML for that particular tag. So the next thing we're going to do is to create another list item. So li. So let's just go through. So actually, this div is supposed to be inside the li. So just copy that and just paste it under this. So these are supposed to be their list items under that list. So so let me just go through real quick. Features and png. So the next thing would be to create another list item. So we can actually also just duplicate this one that we have right here. So we'll just copy this and paste it down here as well. So under this list item, we have company. Here we have features. So I'll save that. So under company, we would have, so under company, the icons would be, let's just go through that real quick. So active states, under company, we have history, our team, and blog. So we would just change up the items here to history, our team, and blog. So I'll just remove the last sublink there. History, our team, blog. Okay, so under company, the icon we'll be using is the same arrow down icon, and then we have submenu 2. So we'll call this submenu 2, and then let's see what we have. Sublink, history. Okay, so the sublinks for the company doesn't have any icons in them, so we'll just erase all of these icons beside it. So just erase the imgs. So let me just do that real quick. So sublink, and then I'll close it. So I'll just say history. Then under history, I'll just duplicate that twice. Under history, I'll say our team. And then under our team, I'll say blog. So we have that as well on the side. So for the second menu, so the third menu, we have just careers. So we can just use those as list items under that. So I'll just say li careers, and then another li I'll call about. So I'll just save that so we can see careers and about. So the next steps would be to create the buttons on the side, login and register button. So before we do that, so yeah, let's just create the login and register buttons on top. So that will be the end for the UL and LIs. That will be the end, and then the next thing will be to create a div. So we'll just create a div here called nav_right, which is going to have the buttons inside, the login and the register button. So I'll just say nav_right. So under nav_right, I'll have a button with a class called transparent button, transparent btn. So inside that, I'll say login. So I'll just duplicate that button, and then I'll say register for the next one. So this one is going to be an outline button, which is going to be styled in our CSS. So I'll just say outline button. And then under that, I would say, so yeah, that should be the end of nav. So let me just go through it real quick. So UL div closed, div nav. Okay, so that should be all for our UL. So yeah, so when we save that, we should see our buttons appear on the side, just like that. So the next step would be, to create our main container. But before that, we want to create a little bit of styling for the ones that we've done so far. So we would just go to our style sheet. So just say, just open up our style sheet, style.css, and then we would first of all declare some roots variables. So we'll just say roots. We just want to do some color settings for our root variables. So we'll just say roots almost white. HSL 0% and 98% opacity. So the next color would be medium gray. Medium gray would be HSL 0041%. And then the next color would be, let me just put a comma here. So the next color would be almost black. So the HSL will be 0% and also 8% here. So once we're done with that, we can use those root variables later on in our code. So now we're going to do a little reset of the CSS by setting our font family to. So say font family should be epilogue and sans serif. So when we save that, the fonts on the page should also change as well. So just save that and see the changes. So just refresh. So that should change the font family. So let's just see font family epilogue. Oh, I forgot to close that here and here. So we just fixed the fonts family. So the next thing, we want to reset the padding as well. So we say padding should be 0. So when we save that, we see all the paddings has been reset. So we say margin as well to 0, and then box sizing to border box, box sizing, border box. So we'll save that as well. So we just did a reset for our HTML. So the next thing we'll do is to set our body. So for our body, we want the main height to be 100 ph, and then the width should be 100% of the screen of whoever is watching. So we'll save that as well. And for now, we can't see any changes because we've actually not put anything inside our body. So we're just doing a little bit of reset. So our IMG as well, we want it to be a max width. All the images in our project, we want the max width to be 100%. So we'll save that as well. And then for our buttons, the buttons that we just created, so let's just give it some styling. So for the outline button, for the outline BTN, we want some styles as well as the transparent BTN. So what styles do we want to specify? So we want all buttons to have a padding of 1 rem on the vertical axis and 2 rem on the horizontal axis. So when we save that, we'll see the changes. So now we can see the changes already appear on the screen. So let's see why the login button actually did not. So let's see transparent button, outline button. Okay, let me see. Outlined BTN. Okay, so let me just save that and also save the next one. So transparent BTN and outline BTN, but the changes have not been effected on the transparent BTN. So I'm trying to see what could be wrong. Okay, so the problem is there's supposed to be a dot here. So when we do that, we can see that the changes have applied to both of them. So the next thing, we want the buttons to have a border radius of 15px. So basically just having a curved, we just want the edges to be a little bit curved, just like the way we have the buttons here. So we just want like the button here and also the button here. So we want them to have a little bit of curved edges. So so the next thing we want to have, we want the color to be medium gray. So we'll just say color medium gray. So it's going to use the root variables, the color code that we preset for medium gray. So it's going to be applied here. So we'll just save that and see what happens. So also we want the cursor to be a pointer. So we'll just say cursor pointer. And then the background color should be transparent as well. Background color transparent. So when we save that, we can now see how our buttons look like on the screen. So the next thing we want to do is for the transparent button, we don't want it to have any borders. So we'll just say transparent button, border, none. So we'll save that, and then we'll see our transparent button has no border, just like it is here in our style guide. So the next thing we want to do is to style our primary buttons, which we've not created. So let's just skip to nav styles. So for nav style, we want our nav tag, or whatever our nav tag is, to have a height of 80px. So we'll say height 80px, and then we'll save that. And then we'll say display flex, and align item center. So when we save that, we should see some changes already made on the screen. So for starters, we would be using the mobile first approach. So we want it to look like something like this for mobile first. So let's just go on and style that. So so the next thing we want to style is the nav container. So we'll just say nav container. So nav container would have would also do display flex for nav container. So display flex and align item center as well. Align item center. And then we would say width should be 100% of whatever screen or whatever device it's on. And then we would also say justify content space between, so that it gives itself space between all the elements around it. So justify content space between, and then max width should be 1440px, which is like the max width for the device that it should be on. So 1440px. And then we want to give it a margin of 0 and auto as well. So there's no space around the border. So we'll just say margin 0 auto. And then we'll save that. And then the next thing we would say padding inline should be 3 rem to give it some space. So padding inline. Three rem. So we'll save that. And at the moment, we cannot see the changes because we haven't, we haven't set that up yet. So we'll say for nav left. So that nav left basically is all the elements on the nav left aside the buttons. So nav left will say display flex. So display flex, and then align item center. So save that, and then we'll see it has aligned itself to. So basically, align item center simply puts both of those elements on the same level horizontally. So the next steps would be styling the nav links. So say dot nav links. So basically, the nav links in our HTML are those elements that are, the nav links are those on ordered list, which is covering the list items inside our HTML. So for nav links, we would say display flex, margin left should be 4rem. So let's save and see what happens. Okay, so margin left should be 4rem, and then list style should be none. And then also the gap between them should be 2.5 rem, 2.5 rem. So yeah, so now what we are creating is kind of like taking shape now. So we're doing, like I said earlier, we're doing a mobile first approach, which is going to look like this by the end of the day. So that's what we're doing. So back to what we're doing. So nav links gap 5 rem. So the next thing we want to style is the nav links, the list items inside of the nav link. So we'll say nav links li, which is the list items inside of the nav link. So we'll say cursor pointer, so that when you hover on it, it will change to a kind of like cursor pointer like we have now. So we'll just say cursor pointer for the list items inside. And then we'll say color should be medium gray, which is one of the colors we specified earlier as part of our root variables. So we'll say medium gray, so we can see the colors just changed to medium gray. So we also want to display flex for the list items, so we'll say display flex, and then we'll save that to see what it does. So at the moment, the icons are looking a little bit squished, so we would fix that in a bit. So let me just see real quick. img class arrow. Okay, so we would fix those in a bit. So display flex, and then the next thing we want to do is align item center. So we'll save that to see, and then we would also create a space between them with our gap and say 0.5 rem. So we'll save that, and then we'll see the squished icons are actually got fixed. So next thing we want to do is say position relative, and then when user selects, basically we'll just set that to none. So basically the user select actually just controls the styles of this. So basically this is how we want it to look like right now. So now we want to say when we hover on the nav list items, we want the colors to be a little bit changed up. So we can see that in our active states. And let's see active states for mobile devices. Okay, it's not there right now, but when it's active, it should be a little bit, yeah, when the mouse hovers on top of the items, it should be a little bit darker than the gray color that we had before. So to do that, we'll just say nav links li on hover. So we'll just say nav links, the list items and the nav links when you hover on them. So just say hover. So when you hover on them, you should have their color changed to black. So we'll say color almost black. So almost black is one of the variables we declared earlier on top. So now when we hover on top of the items here, we can see that they change color. So that's basically how we want it to be like. So so yeah, the next thing we want to do is mobile menu. Mobile. So basically on the mobile menu button, we want to display none. So we'll just say mobile menu btn. Not sure if we created that yet, so let's just say display none. So yeah. So now back to our HTML. Let's just look through to see if everything is the way it is supposed to be. So let me just look through it real quick. IMGULLI. Peter div close company div So under the About Us career, we're supposed to have a mobile menu button there. So let me just create that real quick. So I'll just say mobile menu button. That should be the button that's our hamburger menu button. So we'll say mobile menu button would be our icon menu. So we'll say IMG SRC. So we'll just point to where the icon is. So we'll just say under images, we have mobile menu icon. So let's just say icon menu. Yeah, so when we save that, we should see the icon appear on the screen. Let's see. Okay, currently we are currently not displaying it because we are working on the desktop screen. So let's see. So on mobile screens, the menu appears like this, but currently we are working on desktop screens. So so the menu would not. We don't want the mobile menu, the hamburger menu to show. So we'll just save that, and then we can see the menu disappears. So so that was all about the mobile menu button. So let's just see what is the next thing for us to do. So the next thing we want to do is to create. So let's just see if the navigation is complete, if the navbar is complete. So we have our icon menu button. So let's just see. So the icon menu button is supposed to actually have a class of, okay, yeah, it does have a class of mobile menu button. So let's see if there's anything else. Oh, okay. So let's just see if there's anything else that we need to add. So yeah, that should be all about that. So let's just go ahead to do the, even though we're not done with our nav yet. So let's just see what we have to do to complete our nav bar. So mobile menu button, display none. And then the next thing we want to do is to also say mobile menu, display none. So for our sub menu, we would say display none as well on desktop. On the normal view, we say display none, and then we say flex direction should be column. So save that as well, and then we say position absolute, and then background color should be white. So save that as well. So the next thing is we want to create a gap. So we'll just say gap. one rem. So to create a space between them, so say gap one rem. And then the next thing we want to do is to create a box shadow. So we'll just say box shadow should be 0px, 0px, 10px. So basically we're setting the presets for the shadow and the position of the shadow 3px and RGBA. So we'll just say for the color we'll say 0, 0, 0 and 0.75, which is going to be almost black. So we'll save that as well. So this is meant for when the buttons drop down, like the shadow behind this div that contains the submenus. So the next thing we want to do is to create a padding of 1 rem. So we'll say padding 1 rem, and then also border radius of 10px. So we'll save that. So in the future, when we create the function that drops down the menus, so we would be able to see that. We'll be able to see those right there. So let's see what's the next thing to do. So for the menu that has the name, for the menu that has the class of 1, we want to style that as well. So we'll say bottom should be minus 170px. And then position, the right position should be 0. And then for the one that has 2, the class 2 would say bottom, that's basically the position should be minus 136px. So we'll save that as well. And then for the submenu and the submenu link, we would say display flex align item center, and then we would also change the width as well. So we'd say dot submenu and sublink. Display flex. So save that, and then we would say, let's just see what it looks like. Okay, at the moment the changes are not being reflected, so we'll just say display flex and display flex align item center, and then set the width to 150px, and then the gap to 0.5 rem. So let's just see. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is to set the active menu and then the active arrow. So say for the active arrow, we would say transform rotate, so that when the button is clicked, it kind of like gives it an effect of rotation. So we'll say transform rotate 180 degrees. So save that, and then okay, now I see why we haven't imported. Okay, let's see. Okay, so we'll say transform 180 degrees and then transition 0.2 seconds. So we have an animated effect. So say 0.2 seconds. So we'll save that. So let's see. So the next thing we want to do is to display flex for the active menu. So we'll say active menu, display flex. So let's see. Okay. So the next thing we want to do is to create our main. So now so let's see. I think some some of the classes on our nav aren't correctly spelled. So let's just go through them one more time to see if there's any mistakes. So nav did. So let's just go through it one more time. Mobile menu button. So it's the LI company. So on, okay. So we have come to the end of today's lesson. So we would go through the next steps in the next lesson. So we would be fixing the nav bar in the next lesson, and also we would work on creating the main section, and also we would set the nav submenu to drop down using JavaScript, and then we would also complete the main section and also the images and everything else. So thank you very much for joining today's lesson. Any other information? So further information will be passed across.